Hello, and welcome back. My name is Dr. Christopher Gennari, and this is the Great Big History Podcast. History 101, Episode 11, Persia and the Empire of Nice. And the not-so-nice. So when we left off, we had destroyed the Assyrian Empire. It ended in blood, and violence, and genocide, and the world breaking into pieces, 4 or 5 pieces, and then those 4 or 5 pieces warring against each other. 75 years of war. The winner of those wars were the Persians, who created the largest land empire to this point, stretching from India to Egypt to Europe. 25% of humanity would live within its borders. Why? Why did it win? The Persians weren't important. The Persians were the little cousins to the Medes. If you're watching the video, Persia is this little place, this little kind of boxy place on the Persian Gulf. Media is far bigger. Parthia will have a large history into the Roman era. Babylon is Mesopotamia, right? Egypt is Egypt. Why Persian? Why Persia and the Persians? Well, it's because of this dude, Cyrus. And Cyrus is the man. Say it after me, class. Cyrus is the man. He's the man. How do I know he's the man? Because even today, he has a body wash collection. You can go pick it up in Sephora right now. And you could smell like Cyrus. You don't have a body wash collection. I don't have a body wash collection. He, 2,500 years later, has a body wash collection. So why is Cyrus the man? Well, military victory, right? We've been talking about this for a while, that military victory, since Sargon defines kind of legitimacy, and the Assyrians had military victory, and to create this empire, you need military victory. So military victory, he wins, right? But also, he's nice. He's nice. He's not the Assyrians. He learned from the lesson of the Assyrians. Now, the Assyrians were gone by the time he's born, but the memory, the history is there, and they know what happened to the Assyrians. So he learned from the trauma caused by the Assyrians. Be nice. Cyrus also had his own personal trauma from his grandfather. He has an origin story. The ancients like to tell it. It's in Herodotus. He's special. His grandfather will try to kill him. That's the trauma. So if your granddad tried to kill you, you'd be upset too. You'd be a little traumatized. So he's nice. So what happens? In a series of military victories and wars, he conquers the hub of what is going to be the core of the Persian Empire. He's going to defeat his big rivals, the Lydians and the Babylonians and the Medes. So in 550, he defeats his granddad. There's a whole story where his grandfather had, when his daughter, some stories are before she's pregnant, some are after she's pregnant. He has a dream, and that dream is of vines, an octopus, something coming out of basically his daughter's vajayjay. And the problem is that's interpreted by the smart people as your grandchild is going to destroy your empire. He's going to eat the world, going to conquer the world. And of course, the granddad says, well, F that, man. So in a kind of like Snow White, I'm going to murder the baby, that you'll see also in Oedipus, the whole story becomes, if the daughter's not married yet, marrying her off to a nobody in Persia. You know, the king of the Persians, but, you know, he's a second cousin. He's a nobody, right? So he can't conquer the world if my grandson is if his father is a nobody. And then, or in both cases, then they reunite and he tries to murder the child, right? He has the child kidnapped, taken off into the wilderness, and the guy who's ordered to do this just can't quite do it. And so he goes to a local farmer and goes, "You're going to murder this baby, and I'm coming back tomorrow for it." And the farmer goes, "Okay. And if you don't do it, I'm going to murder you." The guy, "Okay." And so he goes home. Now, because this is a good story and it's in Herodotus, what had happened is the farmer's wife had just given birth to a stillborn baby. And that's horrible, and it's terrible, and everyone's sad, and he comes home, and his wife is sad, and the midwives are sad, and his mother-in-law and mother are sad, and the wife goes, wait. The gods have given us a baby. So don't murder the baby. We'll keep the baby as our own, and we'll use the stillborn baby. Give him the stillborn baby. And the farmer says, "Honey, you are brilliant. You're a wonderful woman. I am sorry that this has happened to you, but you are amazing. I'm going to be worthy of the man you married. I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to get away with this." So he goes. So the next day, the guy shows up. The farmer meets with him. The farmer gives him the stillborn baby. The guy, who just doesn't want anything to do with this because killing babies and killing princes is bad, gods get upset with that, is like, "Great, you're fine. I'm going home." Everybody's happy. So it's like that Snow White where it's like the heart, put the heart in the box type of thing. And it's like Oedipus. Now, the Oedipus story is the Oedipus story where the child is now raised in secret by this farmer. But the problem is that the child has king's blood in him, which means he's awesome at everything because kings are better. They're touched by the gods. So kings are better at everything. So he's both the star. He's like Superman if Superman played football in the movie, right? He's the star quarterback and the star running back and the star wide receiver. And then he plays defense and has the most sacks. He is the best at everything. He is homecoming king and the principal of the school at the same time. And so, of course, he attracts the attention of the grandfather, the king, who's like, "Oh, this kid is just amazing. Bring him to me." And then he looks at him and goes, "I know you. You look like my dad. You've got like my mom's eyes." "You?" And he looks at the guy, go, "Did you murder that baby?" And the nobleman says, "Well, I gave him to I didn't actually murder the child." And the guy's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you. Hey, Cyrus, I'm your granddad." And all is forgiven. Except Cyrus continues to be awesome. And he gets the dream again. And so it's like, oh, I gotta murder this child. So he tries to murder it. So as he grows into a teenager, he tries to murder him again, right? And that's when he escapes to the south. He escapes back to Persia. He shows up. He's like, "I'm son of the king who has recently died, the king of the Persians. The Medes are coming after me. They're trying to murder me. Help me." And his people are like, "Cyrus, you're amazing. Of course we will help you." And he raises an army and he turns to fight his granddad, who has now invaded Persia, right? Now, here's the thing. And this is why you shouldn't be the Assyrians, because this is totally an Assyrian thing to do. The grandfather king of the Medes has to have a punishment for that nobleman. And that nobleman totally expects to die. But he doesn't die. He's not executed. Well, that's nice. In fact, the granddad says, "I'm going to give you a promotion. I'm going to make you a general." The guy's like, "That's amazing. That's great. Thank you, granddad, king of the Medes." And the granddad, king of the Medes says, "And I'm going to hire your son as one of my personal bodyguards. He's going to be my valet. He's going to go everywhere where I go." And the new general, the new nobleman, says, "That's amazing. You are so just. You are so forgiving. That's amazing." And the king of the Medes, time passes, a week or so, 10 days, a month. And the king of Medes says, General, we're going to go fight Cyrus. But before we go, come over for dinner. The general comes over, because you have to go when the king says, and yay, the king is forgiven. He's now a general. They have a wonderful dinner. Great pasta with meat sauce. Great steak. Awesome lamb. Awesome braised meats. Oh, and the general's like, this is delicious. This is delicious. This is wonderful. And the king's sitting there, and he's like, oh, eat more. Here, have seconds. And the guy has seconds. He goes, that's... Would you like to know where I got that meat? And the general says, yes, I would totally buy some more off that farmer. From that rancher. This is great meat. And the king goes, it's your effing son. And they bring out the son's head. You just ate your son. You're a cannibal. Don't do what I ask you to do. That's what you get. Now go down there and defeat Cyrus. So the king of the Medes thinks, having just murdered the general's son and fed the general's son to the general, that the guy is going to be mad at Cyrus and going to go and defeat him. So he goes. The general goes. He takes the army. He heads south. He goes to Cyrus and says, Cyrus, I have come to defeat you. And Cyrus says, you kept me alive once. You're going to murder me now? And the general goes, no, that crazy guy murdered my son and fed him to me. I want to kill him. And Cyrus goes, well, do I have your loyalty? Yes. Well, now you're a general in my army. Let's go. And the king of the Medes is now betrayed by the guy he betrayed and goes off to fight the battle against Cyrus and that general and is defeated in the battle. And Cyrus does the craziest thing. He keeps the granddad alive. He doesn't murder him. His grandfather has been trying to kill him for 20 years. Keeps him alive. He's like, you're king of the Medes. It's okay. You're not going to have much power, but you're king of the Medes. And then what he does is marries a Median noblewoman. And the idea is he has his generals marry Median women. And the idea is to mix the Medes and the Persians. They were kind of distant cousins before, being both nomadic horse people. Now they're going to mix. So there's a joke in the Greek world. One man's Mede is another man's Persian. Meaning they're different, but they're so close to the same, no one can tell them apart. It's like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It's essentially the same thing. So you can see already Cyrus is different. He's got this crazy-ass origin story where his grandfather tries to kill him. He's marrying into the Median royal household to gain legitimacy, to gain, Medians are all worried that he's going to murder them. He doesn't. He elevates them, right? And then he's attacked by Lydia in 547, who is an ally to the Medes. Like, oh, well, we're going to defeat this 22-year-old. We're going to defeat him. He's some kid. And we, the Lydians, have the best cavalry in the world. They were famous for having the best cavalry, men on horses in the world. The plateau, the Anatolian plateau, the plateau is like Wyoming in the middle of Asia Minor, is great for raising horses. It's a piece of Central Asia in the middle of a European climate. And so they have the best cavalry in the world. And they invented money. The Lydians are the ones who invent coins. The Phrygians and the Lydians of this area are the ones who invent coins. So like King Midas is one of these kind of kings. The guy's name is Croesus, and it was a story about how rich as Croesus. That, like we have the Midas touch, you were rich as Croesus. They invented coinage, so they had just unbelievable amounts of money. So he attacks Cyrus. And so Cyrus marches up to Anatolia, 2,000 miles away. Crosses the mountains, gets onto the plateau. They fight the Battle of Thymbra. And how does Cyrus win? He outsmarts the Lydians. He knows Croesus is going to charge him with his horses. And what he notices, and what the general dude who was his ally against the grandfather is supposed to have noticed, is horses are afraid of camel pee. They don't like the smell. So he orders his men, collect the camel pee. Now, here's the thing. How would you like that job? Camel pee collector. But they collect camel pee. And then as the Lydians attack, they're charging, and they're charging. It's like out of Braveheart. They're charging at Cyrus's cavalry, who are supposed to be very good. You know, remember, they're ex-nomads, right? They're ex-nomadic horsemen. These are not wimps. And they come charging in, right? They're charging. They got their lances. And the guys in the front with the pea, the barrels of the pea, they're waiting and they're waiting. They're like, what do we do? And Cyrus is like, wait. And then they push, go. And they push their barrels over. So it makes this line of camel pea. The horses smell it. They freak out. They start bucking around. They run away. In comes Cyrus with his infantry and his camels. Totally wins. Defeats Croesus in a battle. What does he do? He then hires Croesus as an advisor. He says, you are going to be my governor of Lydia. And Croesus is like, dude, why? I was your enemy. And Cyrus is like, well, I don't know who the Lydians are. You're king of the Lydians. Do you know who the Lydians are? And he says, well, yeah, I'm king of the Lydians. He goes, well, who better to lead them? And Croesus is like, cool, I get to stay king. And Cyrus is like, well, I'm your king. But yes, so I will be, and you will know this title, King of Kings, which is a title Sargon took, King of Kings, because Cyrus is a king in charge of other kings. Now, there's a cool little story with Croesus and this whole battle. The Battle of Thymbra, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong, is probably the first place the Persians are going to come into battle with a Greek phalanx. Because the coast of Asia Minor, the western coast of Asia Minor, was Ionia, Ionia, and it was full of Greek cities, 25 Greek cities. This is where Homer will be from. And the Greeks fought in a Greek phalanx, because they're Greeks. And they would have been lighter troops in what was called East Greece, but in Ionia, you'd also have, lighter troops that would throw spears and whatnot. But probably this is what the Lydians had done, what Croesus's fifth grandfather had done, was conquer the Greek cities and incorporate them in. And the Greeks liked the Lydians, and the Lydians liked the Greeks, and Croesus really likes Greek culture. And so probably the Greek phalanx, this is the first time Greeks fight the Persians and are on the battlefield. We don't have any records of the Persians fighting a Greek phalanx on the battlefield. That tells you just how insignificant they are, but they would have been there. They would have been on the battlefield as allies to Croesus. Well, Croesus was what's called a Philhellene, Philhellene, Philhellene. So before the war, before he attacks Cyrus, he goes to the Delphic oracle, the oracle of the Greeks. He goes to Greece. He goes to Delphi. He pays the money, and he sits down, and he goes, I've got this guy. He defeated my ally. He's on my border. Should I attack Cyrus? And the oracle breathes in the volcanic fumes and speaks. This is a woman. She speaks in this ethereal voice and goes, if you attack Cyrus, you will destroy a great empire. And Croesus says, oh, that's great. That's awesome. I'm going to win. I'm going to take over the Persian Empire. I'm going to take over this Median Empire. I will be king of the world. That will only leave Babylon and Egypt. I'll be awesome. I'll be the richest man in the world. Now, he completely missed the warning sign on the entrance. When you walked into the Delphic oracle, there was a sign that said, know thyself. Know thyself? Yeah, I think it's know thyself. To thy own self be true, that's Shakespeare. Know thyself. Croesus did not know himself. So he goes, he fights Cyrus, he loses his empire. He goes back to the Delphic oracle and goes, "You told me I would destroy a great empire." And the Delphic oracle goes, "You did. Yours. It's not my fault you didn't ask which one." And Croesus is like, oh, because Croesus was full of hubris. He thought, I'm a great king. I will be a great king. I automatically will win. So now the Persians have destroyed the Medians, had not destroyed the Medians, had incorporated the Medians, had defeated the Median king, absorbed them. They've now absorbed the Lydians. So Babylon attacks, because now Babylon's worried, as anyone would be. They're now surrounded in the north and to the east by the Persian armies. So you better attack now before something bad happens, before they get too strong. And so what happens? Cyrus marches on the city. He marches right down the rivers, right through Assyria, right past the burned out wreck ruins of Nineveh, right to the gates of Babylon, where the nobles betray the Babylonian king. They open up the gates. They bring out the Babylonian king, all wrapped up in rope. And they're like, "Cyrus, we don't want to wage war on you. This guy did. He's yours. Do with him what you want." And you know what Cyrus does? You know what this guy does? He lets him go. He cuts him loose. He lets him go. He hires him as king of the Babylonians to be in charge of Babylon, just like he did with Croesus in Lydia, and just like he kind of did with his granddad. His granddad he puts into retirement, but he doesn't murder his granddad. He hires him, lets him stay as king. He's like, "You're a king, I'm a king." And then he looks at the 10 guys who betrayed their own king, and he arrests them. And he goes to murder them. He goes to have them executed. And they're like, wait, but we gave you Babylon. And he's like, "You betrayed your king. You betrayed your oaths. He was your homeboy. And he's one of you. If you're disloyal to him, how do I know you won't be disloyal to me?" And they're like, "Oh, that's true. Oops." And so he has them executed, has their heads cut off. Right? And so now he owns Babylon. So he has absorbed the 3 richest places in the world: the Medes, the Lydians, and the Babylonians. The only place that's left is Egypt, that he hasn't absorbed yet. And then he does something even crazier. He looks around in Babylon and he sees these enslaved peoples. He goes, "Who are these people?" He actually has a kind of Natural Geographic. He has people come to him. "Who are you and who are you?" Because he's never been in a place with so many different peoples. And in come these Hebrews, and they go, "We are the Hebrews from Judea. And we were enslaved by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. And we're in the Babylonian captivity." And he goes, "Would you like to go back to Judea?" And they say, "Yes, we would love to go back to Judea, but we don't have any money." And Cyrus says, "How about I give you the money? I'll give you the horses. I'll give you the carts. I'll let you go back." And they go, "Well, that's awesome, Mr. Cyrus, Sir King. That's really awesome. The problem is we had a city that got burned down. It was destroyed." And Cyrus says, "Was it a good city?" "Oh, well, it's not Babylon, but it's pretty good for us. It's respectable in a Mesopotamian sort of way." He's like, "Well, I will help you rebuild it. You got to have your city back." And the Hebrews go, "Well, Mr. Cyrus, this is so generous. You are amazing. You are the greatest thing since, well, we've started writing a book about great people, so we'll add you in there. We had a temple." And Cyrus goes, "You had a temple?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, we had a temple." Like, "Why did you have a temple? Shouldn't you have many temples?" And the Hebrews go, "Well, actually, we only have one God. We're monotheists." And Cyrus then cracks a rib laughing. And they sit there because they're very polite. And they're like, yes, yeah, Cyrus, anytime you want to stop laughing, we know it's very funny. And Cyrus is like, oh, you thought you were going to defeat the Babylonians with one god? And they're like, well, he's a pretty powerful god. Please, one god. Oh, come on. All right. Woo, that was funny. Woo, you people. All right, you and your one god. Was it a big temple? And they go, yeah, we only had one god, so we put all our money into that one temple. He's like, well, then I'll help you rebuild that too. And that is the temple that Jesus will be in. That is Herod's temple. Will be a temple that will be rebuilt with the help of the Persians, ordered by Cyrus. The Hebrews will also be renamed as Jews, meaning ones who live in Judea. Now that's a big deal because they didn't live in Judea. The Babylonians had picked them up and kicked them out. So they weren't Judeans anymore. It's the Persians who are going to send them back. They'll be renamed. They'll pick up that name too. It's not like. But Jews are the ones who live in Judea, and Judea becomes their homeland. Like, it's official now. They get it. Which is a big deal because the Assyrians didn't want them there, and the Babylonians didn't want them there, and the Egyptians are never happy to have them there. And so this is a big deal. So it's theirs now, not the other Canaanite peoples, not the Philistines peoples, not the Moabs, not the Phoenicians. It's theirs. It's the Jews in Judea. And they're allowed to rebuild. Now, I know I'm telling a lot of stories, and we'll go a little faster now. But they're fun stories. But we can see, look at how nice Cyrus is being. And it works. For the Hebrews, they call Cyrus a Messiah. There are, if I am not mistaken, and I might be mistaken, 11 named people. There's lots of things that are messiahs, but there's 11 named people. Jesus is not one of them. Who are named as messiahs. Cyrus is the only one who's not a Hebrew, who's not Jewish. All the other, remember what a messiah is. A messiah is someone sent by the Jewish God to help the Jewish people. Cyrus is one of those people, which is insane, which is crazy. That is awesome PR. It's like how liberals think about Justin Trudeau. Oh, if only you could be our president. Sent from Canada to save America. And this is Isaiah 45, 1-3. Thus say the Lord to his anointed. Anointed. That's what Messiah literally is the anointed. To Cyrus, whom he has taken by his right hand, which is your powerful hand. It's the thing you grab when you really want to hold something, when it's important. So Cyrus is being taken by the right hand of God, right? That's where Jesus will be, at the right hand of the Father, right? So Cyrus, whom he has taken by his right hand to subdue nations before him and strip the loins of kings. Notice Babylon, Lydia, Media. To force gateways before him, and that their gates shall be closed no more. I, meaning Yahweh, the Jewish God, will go before you leveling the heights. That's the Tarsus Mountains. That's the mountains to get into Asia Minor. I will shatter the bronze gateways. That's the gates of Babylon. The famous gates, the giant 60-foot tall gates of Babylon. I will smash the iron bars. I will give you the hidden treasures, the secret hoards, that you may know that I am the Lord. That's where God mic drops. That's where Yahweh, when Yahweh says that you may know I am the Lord, it's where you just have to imagine it's God mic dropping. Because that's what it is. It's like, I've done this thing. I am who I am, which is literally the name of Yahweh. I am who is. I'm God. And I did this. Boom. Think about what kind of PR that is. That's Hebrews telling other Hebrews, Cyrus is our guy, was sent by our God. That's crazy. And awesome if you're Cyrus. It tells you being nice works. So what is the result? It changes the nature of legitimacy. You no longer have terrorism and war and destruction as legitimacy. You now have being nice, and you get loyalty out of it. The Hebrews don't revolt. Tyre, the Phoenician cities, fight. The Lydians fight Alexander. They are loyal to the Persian king for 200 years. Even when Alexander comes through, the Lydians, the Phoenicians, the Hebrews all fight against Alexander. They fight for the Persian king. And Alex is like, dude, I'm Alex. And they're like, yeah, but the Persians were nice to us. What do you want? And Alex is like, I'm going to have to fight you and kill you. And so he destroys Tyre. He overwhelms Lydia. When he shows up to the Hebrews are like, well, you've already won, so we're just going to give up. And he's like, oh, okay, that's cool. I got to get to Egypt anyway. And they're like, you won. You're cool. But, we had to fight. And Alex is like, I understand. You're loyal. So the Hebrews will join the Persian army. And for 200 years, the people who got conquered by the Persians will be loyal to the Persians, which is crazy. Right? That's what being nice does. Well, Cyrus will die. He'll actually die in battle out in Afghanistan somewhere, in what's called Bactria in the east. He never invades Egypt. And his son is Cambyses. And his son wants to be like dad. And he looks around the map and he says, there's nothing left. Dad conquered it all. This sucks. And someone says, well, there's Egypt. And he's like, well, what's Egypt? It's like, well, it's in the far southeast. It's in Africa. It's on a new continent. We have to cross the desert to get there. But Cambyses, it's the richest place in the world. It's the only one left, but it's super rich. So if you can conquer it, you get to make a name for yourself. Your dad didn't conquer the richest place in the world. And so Cambyses is like, that's awesome. Let's go. He gets his army together, invades Egypt. He gets a navy together from the Phoenicians. He invades Egypt, crosses the Sinai, invades Egypt, and wins. But he's not nice. He's not nice. He murders the avatars of the Egyptian gods, including one of the bulls. The Egyptians had a sacred bull, which was an avatar of the gods. It was, a symbol of plenty. And what does he do? The story is he murdered the bull and then had a barbecue to show that the Persians were tougher than the Egyptians. There's an insurgency. He has a counterinsurgency. He's not nice. He throws dead bodies into the Nile River, all kinds of terrible things, and delights in. Cambyses did not learn from his father. Cambyses is an Assyrian type of conqueror, and so he's not nice. And so what is the result? The Egyptians hate him, and the Persians by extension, and they revolt all the time. Every time something goes bad for a Persian king, Egypt will revolt. And because Egypt is the most populous place in the world and has the most money, is the richest country in the world. Remember, Babylon's the richest city, but Egypt is the richest country. They always have the money to either hire mercenaries from Africa, hire mercenaries from Greece, right? Hire or make their own. So they revolt all the time. And they're far away. To invade Egypt, you have to cross the Sinai Desert again. You have to go up the rivers to the Levant, down the Levant, cross the Sinai. It's exhausting. It takes a year to do it. So they revolt all the time because Cambyses was not nice. Well, Cambyses will die. And he is not murdered. Cambyses is the stories go, he went insane. Terrible things happen. He becomes bloodthirsty, but he is not murdered. He dies. The story is he died of a self-inflicted wound that became an accident that became infected, basically. It's interesting because none of the ancient sources have him being murdered. And you would think you have a crazy king who is, murdering people for the sport of it. You have, the mad king from Game of Thrones. Someone's got to murder him. Nobody murders him. He dies as a young man. from an accident. That leaves, he has no kids, so that leaves who's going to run the Persian Empire. There's no clear successor. And there's a group of people, of relations, of cousins and whatnot, who like, we could do it. We could do it together. This is like the early Soviet Union after Lenin dies. It's a bunch, like 6 people, who are like, why don't we form a council? We'll divide up the empire among ourselves, and like, we'll run it together. We're homeboys. We're best friends. Well, one of those guys is Darius, who's a cousin and an officer of Cambyses, but he's not a direct heir. So what does he do? Like Stalin, he murders the other 5 guys. He murders the claimants. The idea is there can only be one. Only one person. Remember we started with there has to be one king? This is still true. The idea that there will be many kings or a council, no. We're going to have one king. And he's going to be nice. He's going to learn from Cyrus. He's going to abandon Cambyses not being nice. He's going to be nice. And his decision is to build infrastructure to unite the empire. He's going to build Persepolis, the city of the Persians. It's a massive city to compete with Babylon, just like Nineveh, except not terrorist like Nineveh. Now, the idea is you're going to hire the best and the brightest. You're going to bring them down to Persia, and you're going to build a city that you're going to show off. Look at what the Persians can do. They're going to pay well. Unlike Nineveh, which was slave labor, the Persians are going to pay well. They're bringing people together to exchange knowledge, because now you got people from India and from Greece, from the Caucasus and from Arabia, all coming together. And what are they going to talk about? They're going to talk about where they came from. They're going to be like, who are you and why are you so pale? And they'll be like, well, I'm from the mountains of Greece. And they're like, well, where is that? And they're like, well, it's 3,000 miles to our west. And who are you? And they're like, well, I'm from the Indus River Valley. And they're like, well, where the hell is that? Well, it's 1,000 miles to our east. Wait, the Persians own everything in between? Holy. Exactly. By putting these people together and then paying them well, you get a city that is built that people are happy with. They're like, hey, I built this. I did good. You get the best and the brightest of the art, of the architecture. It's the most up-to-date art. It's the best from all over the world. And the people are impressing each other by the Persians come off well because when they go, hey, I got paid well. Did you get paid well? Yeah, I got paid well. And they're like, how do they do this? And then they exchange knowledge. Hey, how did you make that art? Well, let me show you. So you get woodworkers from Phoenicia, from Lebanon, where the cedar trees are. You get mosaic painters from Greece. You get the stone monuments from Mesopotamia. And Persepolis, because you have to have a city that proves you're awesome, because Babylon still exists. Remember that. As long as Babylon exists, everyone's like, where is your Babylon? If you show up and say you're really tough, it's like being a pitcher without a fastball. You got to have one. So it's, well, we'll build one. And we're going to build it. It's going to be awesome. And so it's a nice Nineveh. The second thing they build is communication highways. These are not trade highways. These are not drive-on-them highways. This is more like the internet. This is only for communication to go back and forth. That's what these highways are for mail. And what that allows for is that the Persian king is the best informed king in the world. He can get information from Egypt, from Greece, from Lydia, from India, faster than any king ever before. So he's able to rule and send out letters and send out rules and send out missives better than any king ever before. 3, it also means more war. In India, in Europe, and in Athens. Because Darius will not invade all of Greece, he'll just attack Athens, but he invades other parts of Europe as well. And in this, we get an imperial army. So what we need to talk about is the imperial army. The Persian army. And that's actually what we're going to talk about in the next episode. We're going to stop here. This is about 40 minutes in. So we're going to stop here. We're going to talk about the Persian army, its advantages, its disadvantages, and then we're going to destroy the Persian Empire. And that will be it. All right. Thank you.